Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about Math 100, section 1.5, and we'll start off with the definition of subtraction. The definition of subtraction is adding the opposite. And what this means is if I have a minus a number n, that can be thought of as the same as a plus the negative version of that number. I add the opposite. Subtraction is really just a shortcut for adding the opposite. That's actually why in the order of operations we perform them simultaneously. Subtraction and addition, right? We go left to right. Subtraction is just a form of addition where you're adding the opposite instead of adding the regular number, right? Subtracting side numbers, there's only one step, and it's use the definition. That's it, use the definition. If you can add sign numbers, you can subtract sign numbers because we will flip them to use the definition. So let's check out a bunch of examples. 12 minus 3. Well, that's going to be 12 plus negative 3 using the definition. I have 12 minus 3, so I do 12 plus negative 3. Now, we already know 12 minus 3 should be 9, right? Is 12 plus negative 3 also 9? And if we think about it, yeah, it is, isn't it? 12 plus negative 3 is 9, because 12 is bigger, so it's positive, and the difference between the two is 9. Now, you probably wouldn't use the definition on this problem, but it illustrates the technique, right? Similarly, 5 minus 7. Some of you might be thinking, oh, that's negative 2. But let's look at the definition again. 5 minus 7 will be the same as 5 plus negative 7, which by the definitions for addition is negative 2, right? Different signs means I look at the difference, which is 2, and the 7 tells me it's negative, right? Because the 7 is the larger of the two values. Negative 8 minus 15. Well, if I use the definition, I'm going to have negative 8 plus negative 15. Well, these have the same sign, so I'll keep the sign the same and combine the values. So that becomes negative 23 once I've completed the addition, right? So negative 8 minus 15 is negative 23. Now number 4. Negative 3 minus negative 5. Well, if I want to add the opposite, what is the opposite of negative 5? Well, that's positive 5, right? What other rule could I call this? That's the double negative rule also, right? Two back-to-back negative signs make a positive. We can also think of it that way, right? So negative 3 plus 5, hopefully we're all in agreement, that should be 2. And so notice, because I can add, I can subtract. As long as I know how to add, I always know how to subtract, because I'm turning subtraction into addition problems. So let's take a look here. 3 over 8 minus negative 4 over 5. Well, the first thing I'm going to do, before I worry about the fractions, is deal with the subtraction, because I want to add the opposite. 3/8 plus the opposite of negative 4/5 would be positive 4/5. I made the problem significantly easier by handling the adding the opposite portion first. Now, I still need to add the fractions. I still need to find a common denominator. Common denominator between 8 and 5 is 40. So, to get from 8 to 40, I multiply the top and bottom by 5, which gives me 15 over 40. And then to go to 5 to 40, we multiply by 8, right? Oops, that should be a plus sign. 4 times 8 is 32 over 40. Which, now I have the same base, so I know it's going to be 40 in the bottom. 15 plus 32 gives me 47 over 40. Or, if you prefer mixed numbers, that would be 1, and there's going to be 7 left over after we take a whole amount of 40 out, right? 70/40ths, right? As a mixed number. Either or. Our sixth example, negative 8.75 minus negative 2.14. Once again, I'm going to use adding the opposite. So I'll keep the first one, and then I'll add 2.41 instead of subtracting negative 2.41. Double negative again, right? Now, these have different signs, and I'm adding them. So I want to think about the difference. What is the difference between 875 and 241? 8.75 minus 2.41. Well, the answer is going to be 6.34. I now ask myself, negative or positive? Well, the 8.75 was negative, so that tells me the answer is also negative. So I get negative 6.34. So notice, we turned each of these subtraction problems into an addition problem, which made us not have to learn a new skill. We're using the same skills we've already built. We turn problems into versions we already know how to solve. And that's some examples of adding the opposite. Now, on the back page, we've got a bit of a caution first, and that has to do with the subtraction symbol having more than one meaning. Which meanings does it have? Well, we've seen it take on two different meanings, right? We've seen it take on the negative sign and the subtraction sign. And it's important to know which is which. You should be able to tell by looking at a problem which is which. In this problem here, negative 6 minus bracket 2 minus parentheses 8 plus 3 parentheses bracket. That is what that says. How did I know which ones are minuses and which ones were negatives? The context. Same with, what's that word? Is that lead or lead? Am I leading a group of students, or am I making, pipes out of lead to, plumb my house? Or which am I doing? How do I know what it means? If I want to know what that word is, what's the only way to tell? Well, in a sentence, you would use the context, right? If a sentence says, the plumber removed all the lead pipes, you would know it's lead. If it says, the kindergartner teacher led her students in song, you would know it's led with the past tense of lead, right? And if I say that the governor leads our state, then I know I'm using the word lead. The context clues. Same for negatives and subtractions. The context clues are what help us here. So let's evaluate each expression. Now, we still work inside grouping symbols and work left to right. So, first I'm going to do 8 plus 3. So I'll copy negative 6 minus brace 2 minus 8 plus 3 is 11. So I did the parentheses first, the 8 plus 3. Next, I move to 2 minus 11. I'm still working in my grouping symbols. So I've got negative 6 minus 2 minus 11 is negative 9. Now, I want to add the opposite. I've only got one operation, negative 6 minus negative 9. Negative 6 plus the opposite of negative 9 is positive 9. And negative 6 plus 9 should be 3. So that question simplified down to 3. Let's move to number 3 next, just for interest of space. We've got absolute value of 4 minus 7 minus 2. I'm going to put a times sign here. How do I know it was multiplication in between the value of 2 and the grouping symbol? Because anytime you don't write the operation, you should assume it's multiplication. Think of it like 2 parentheses, multiplication. 7x, 7 times x. 2 absolute value sign, 2 times that absolute value. And we got 6 minus 3. Once again, we've got to work in our groups first, right? 4 minus 7, hopefully we can agree that that should be negative 3. Minus 2 times 6 minus 3 is positive 3. Now, I've sorted out what was going on in my absolute value signs. Now I can calculate. Absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3 minus 2 times absolute value of 3 is 3. I multiply before subtracting. Multiply next. Multiply next. 3 minus 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 minus 6 is negative 3. Let's keep working around clockwise. I don't know why that's the order I want to go in, 1, 3, 4, 2, but that's the order we're going to work in, right? We can switch it up. What do I do first here? Let's see, 2 minus bracket parentheses negative 3 parentheses minus 4. So this is the innermost parentheses, right? I look to see what the innermost is. So I'll copy everything else down, minus negative 3 parentheses minus 4 plus 6 is 10. Now, negative 3 minus 10. If I think about adding the opposite, I'm going to do negative 3 plus negative 10, right? Or maybe I've gotten used enough to the subtraction to see that negative 3 take away 10 is going to be negative 13. Either way, you should convince yourself that you get negative 13 here. Make sure you're getting negative 13, right, when you perform this subtraction. Now, 2 minus negative 13, we can use the double negative to get 2 plus 13, right? That's a double negative, right? And 2 plus 13, that's 15. So once again, we went one step at a time, and we found our answer to be 15. This one over here. Well, let's take a look here. I got to work inside the grouping symbols first. So I'm just going to copy down 2/3 minus, and I got a double negative. Let's work with that double negative first. Let's just write 1/12 plus 1/4, right? Let's worry about the double negative first. And that's pretty nifty because I cleaned up a lot of the signage, right? I turned it into just an addition problem in here. So I'm still working here. I need common denominators. 2/3 minus common denominator between 12 and 4. Well, this will stay 1/12. But 1/4, I got to multiply the top and bottom by 3, right? To get a common denominator of 12. 12 in the bottom and 3 in the top is going to give me 2/3 minus 1/12 plus 3/12 is 4/12, which 4/12. Does 4/12 reduce? 4/12 is the same as 1/3. So I can reduce this to be 2/3 minus 1/3. 4/12 reduces, right? And then, good news for me, they have a common denominator now. 2 minus 1 is 1 over 3. So 2/3 minus bracket 1/12 minus negative 1/4, end parentheses and bracket, is 1/3. Notice we went one step at a time. We did double negative. Then we got a common denominator. Then we added. Then we reduced this fraction because we saw that 4/12 reduced to 1/3, and that would make the problem more easy for us. And we got a final answer of 1/3. Maybe we should box it more clearly as our answer, right? 1/3 was the final answer. So there's some examples of subtracting and adding in various orders, right? Notice the order doesn't change. The only new part is I have to worry about the signs of the numbers. Are they positive? Are they negative? So make sure you're being careful. Follow the same sequence of steps, but make sure you pause and think about the signage along the way. Now, let's do a couple examples of word problems. The first says the record high temperature in the U.S. was 134 degrees from Death Valley. The record low was negative 80. What is the difference between the record high and record low? Difference is subtraction. And I want to put the record high and the record low. Careful, the record low itself was negative, so I'm subtracting a negative, which if we remember, the double negative rule tells us that can become a plus, which will give me 134 plus 80 is 214 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't forget your units. How did I know it was degrees Fahrenheit? Well, because the question told me that's what the temperatures are measured in. Another word problem. An American football team gained 3 yards on the first down, lost 12 yards on second down, then gained 13 yards on the third down. Find the net total yardage for the plays. So I need to make sure I'm careful with my signs here. I'm totaling. I'm going to add the 3 numbers. First, I gained 3, then I lost 12, then I gained 13. Notice the middle one was a negative number because of the word lost. That's how I knew it was negative. If you lose yardage, you're going in the negative direction on the field, right? Now, I'm going to add these two first. Can I do that? Can I add in whatever order I want? Yeah, addition works like that, right? 3 plus negative 12 plus 13. The reason I did that is that because it becomes positive 1, right? 12 and 13 have a difference of 1. They've got different signs, and the 13 tells me the sign is positive. So my answer is going to be 4 yards. How did I know it was yards? The question told me my football measurements are in yards. And so there's some examples of word problems. Notice we had to be careful with the signage, but otherwise we're just walking through the key words, right? Just note the signage. And that is all for section 1.5. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.